think one of the big problems that many of us have in life is something that's not really spoken about perhaps, or maybe it's not something exterior to us, it's not something that happens to us, but it's something that goes on inside. That's the knowledge, or the acknowledgement, or the knowing that we are loved by God. It's a problem because for a lot of us, we don't feel loved by God. We hear it, you come to Mass and the priest will tell you, as I've done in the past, that you're loved by God, that we are all loved by God, that God forgives. And this is a message that the church preaches over and over again. But the problem, as we know, that we have is that, well, certainly for me, I've got a very bad memory at the best of times, but on the whole, we as Christians we as human beings tend to forget. The gospel, the church proclaims over and over again the love of God, and we forget. There are other voices coming in which tell us the opposite, other voices in our heads, and it's much like what we have here in the Gospels. We have the tax collectors and the sinners, those who are outcast, those who are outside as it were, the mercy of God according to Jewish faith. And here they're seeking the company of Jesus, and the scribes and the Pharisees are saying, these are sinners and they shouldn't be with you, Jesus. They don't deserve to be with you. They don't deserve to have a place with you because they are bad people. They are sinners. They are living the wrong sort of way. Their life is all of a mess, and they do not deserve to have you in their presence. They don't deserve to hear your word or to be able even to speak to you. You should kick them out. And that's actually a dialogue that's often going on in our own heads. We often don't feel that we're good enough. We've committed some sin, or our life isn't perfect, and we actually know it's a bit of a mess. That's a reality. And there's a scribe and Pharisee in our heads saying, you don't deserve to be in the presence of Jesus Christ. You don't deserve to be able to listen to him. You shouldn't even bother trying to come into his presence because you're such an awful person, he won't want to hear you speak. And this is basically what they're saying to the tax collectors and sinners. That's the message to them. And it's a message that, as I say, is being played out in our heads regularly. But we know, and we need to be continually reminded. And Jesus responds to this with these three parables: the lost sheep, the lost drachma, and the prodigal son, or the forgiving father. And the church today, all the readings that we've heard are about the love and the mercy of God. Just to look at more on this, the prodigal son. We have this son who has left the father. He's basically said to the father, as far as I'm concerned, you're dead. You know, I've got no interest in knowing you, having any sort of connection with you. You know, if you just go away and crawl under a hole and die somewhere, I'd be quite happy. Just as long as you give me my inheritance, then that's all I want. And I think for any parent to have to hear that from a child, to experience that from one they want, or maybe to experience it from a parent who says to a child, actually, I don't want to know you. That is awful. That is hurtful. And this is what this young man has said to his father. Just give me the money. I don't give a damn about you. And he's gone. And as we hear in the story, disaster happens, and he's left desiring, he wants to eat the flesh of pigs. He's gone as low as he can as far as a Jew is concerned. And he comes to his senses, it says here in the scriptures. And what's he saying? How many of my father's paid servants have more food than they want, and here am I dying of hunger? I'll go back to my father and say, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as one of your paid servants. There are two things I think going on here. Two possible things. I'm not sure which is actually going on, but there's two possible things going on here. One is what we've spoken about. This son has committed such a heinous crime that he doesn't think that God will ever be able to forgive him. He has been so awful that he says, you know, I want to go back, but obviously I'm such a bad son that I can't go back as a son. I don't deserve. I'll crawl on my knees to him, and maybe he'll take me in as a paid servant. Maybe I'll get in that way. And that's what he tries. The response, though, is not what one would expect for such bad behavior. If somebody did that to us, I'm sure that we would find it very difficult to respond the way the loving Father does, the forgiving Father, because the Son comes in and gives this story. I no longer deserve to be your son, treat me as one of your paid servants. And the Father basically ignores his words. He's not interested. He's not interested. He is glad his son is back. That's what he is interested in. And this isn't just, this is consistent with what we've heard here in the Old Testament, where the people of God have basically abandoned God. God who, they've been pleading, right, in the Old Testament, this text, they've been pleading for God to rescue them from Egypt. God has come in with signs and wonders, pulled them out of Egypt, taken them to this mountain. He's been leading them with a pillar of fire by night, a pillar of cloud by day. He's been working these miracles of giving manna in the desert, quails. He's been feeding them, miracle after miracle. They get to the mountain, there's fire, there's lightning, there's the sound of God's voice speaking. They hear all this, and as soon as Moses goes up the mountain, they start worshipping a cow and say, this is what brought us out of Egypt. And so God rightly says, I think I've had enough of you. But the mercy of God, that's justice. Justice says, after this, you deserve to die. But God's mercy says, I will take you back anyway. St. Paul in his letter saying, I was out to destroy the church. I did everything I could to destroy the church. He didn't have any right, as it were, to be a Christian. And yet the mercy of God brought him in and made him one of the greatest Christians. God doesn't care where we've been. He doesn't care where we've been. He cares where we're going. And that's towards him. When we're coming to him, it doesn't matter our past, what we've done. He rejoices that we are with him, that he has come back home, that we have come back home. It actually also doesn't matter the reason we're coming back. What I find really interesting is what the son actually said when he came to his senses. The other thing, I said there was two things we could take from this. The first was the son not feeling really worthy. The second is this. Look at this. He says, and this maybe what was going on. He says, I don't deserve to be, how many of my father's paid servants have more food than they want, and here am I dying of hunger? It appears that the reason he's going back is not because he's sorry. That doesn't even come into the story here. He's not sorry, he's just hungry. I want food, and I know if I just went back as a paid servant of my father, I'll get food. That's the reason he's going back. But the Father doesn't care. You're coming back. You're coming back. That's what I care about. So folks, whatever your reason for being here, the Father rejoices that you're here. If you are thinking about repenting and turning back to him and giving your life once more to him, the reason at the end of the day, there are good reasons, there are bad reasons, but that your coming back is good enough for him. And he welcomes you.